Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Debbie Horovich, and I am your host for this episode of the Silver Lining Storycast. This is the new interview storytelling series that I'm launching this fall, 2016. And I'm really excited about it because I launched the Silver Lining Storybook, my anthology storytelling book series, like Chicken Soup for the Soul. I launched it earlier this year in order to give more opportunities for the amazing people that I know, for them to share their stories and to promote, often for the very first time, some of the worst and best experiences that we all have. And ultimately what we're doing through this conversation is working to recognize the truth in the saying that every storm cloud has a silver lining. So there's always benefit in the struggles if you look for it. And that's what we're looking to do through this series of conversations. So my guest today, I'm very excited to welcome the Director of Operations for ShadeWorks Window Fashions, Jordan Klein. Jordan is based here in Toronto, so he will be participating in the Toronto edition of the Silver Lining Storybook that will be published in December of 2016. And so today's conversation is to talk about Jordan's silver lining stories in his life. So to give you a little bit of information about him, Jordan is, as I mentioned, the Director of Operations. And as Director of Operations for ShadeWorks Window Fashions, he's very hands-on in the Toronto area. And he works with everyday homeowners, helping them to find coverings for their windows that have both style and function. And what he really aims to do is transform the look of their house and turn it into a home. Welcome, Jordan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking a few moments to chat with us and to share your story. To introduce yourself to the listeners and to the audience today, I want to start by asking you about, this is kind of our warm-up question, asking you about ShadeWorks Window Fashions and the customers that you serve through this business.
No problem. So ShadeWorks Window Fashions has been in operation for over 3 years now, fully. Let's call it that. It's been in the works for probably 6 to 7 years, but essentially ShadeWorks is an online e-commerce based business. We distribute and service customers all across Canada. However, in the Toronto and the Vancouver areas, we provide a shop at home, let's call it an in-home consultation, basically a sense where we can meet with you one-on-one firsthand in your home to provide you with the service and products that you need. So whether you're living in the suburbs and can't really get to a storefront, or whether you're living in a city and don't have time to get to a storefront, so we have that, shadeworks.ca, an everyday, easy-to-use website to browse, search prices, search products, essentially get as much information as you can. But at the same time, if, you do have that opportunity to go to places or you want to meet with someone and the truth is you don't really know where to start. And to be completely honest, that's a lot of our customer base is that, they really don't really know where to start and they don't know what products are out there and what to really do. So we are there to basically help with that. So we come to your home or we can meet in office to essentially show you different products, discuss your windows, discuss what you want out of your windows, and then essentially provide you with the window coverings for your home. Basically, that's a quick synopsis, but we aim to please, so to speak. And the window coverings business is very, very competitive, and at the same time, it's very attention to detail orientated. That's for sure. And a lot of people take for granted how custom and how fine tooth it really is. So we definitely like to work with you on that and show you kind of the directions you can go. We don't want to tell you, we don't want to sell you. We want to work together with you to basically help you cover your windows and to provide you with a good quality product.
Awesome. What's really unique about ShadeWorks?
I would say the most unique factor about ShadeWorks is because we're a little bit smaller than most companies, you really do get that in-home, not just in-home actually, you really get that experience of not only meeting with one of the ShadeWorks representatives, but building that relationship with them. I would say 9 out of 10 customers, when we first meet with them, they actually have no idea where to start. And, a lot of times we start by saying, okay, yeah, so we have a roller shade, for example, and we often forget that 9 out of 10 people don't even know what a roller shade is, even though to most, some, for us in particular, we're saying a roller shade, it's as simple as it gets. So I would say what's very unique about us is that we like to sit down with you, we like to educate you, and we like to go through the process with you to help you make that decision. And we build these relationships. And what we find is, we work with, let's say, Fred, and then Fred tells his sister, and, it's sometimes we get this whole family bond going on, and we get to meet with a lot of different people, a lot of their families, and we do build relationships with them. Even though we want to cover their windows and hopefully that lasts their lifetime, we still keep in touch, we build the relationships, but at the end of the day, we want to provide a good product, a good service, and that's what will help ShadeWorks stand out from the rest.
Awesome. So tell me, Jordan, how you came to be in this position that you're in today.
Right.
What was the silver lining story, or what was the path that you took in your life that brought you to this point? Because I'm sure that you had to go through a few struggles to make this achievement.
There's always the ups and downs. There's always the struggles. But, at the end of the day, the most important thing that I learned throughout everything is just always looking forward and keeping positive. I always say the glass isn't half full, it's 3/4 full. So that's what got me going and keeps me motivated through it all. My story in particular is quite unique, as I'm a science background, we'll call it. Throughout my entire school, I was a science guy, I was a math guy. So I definitely took all those courses. Going into university, I took kinesiology. I'm also a sports guy. So, working with the body, personal training, playing sports, I loved it all. And being in sciences and maths, I was never really fortunate enough to be able to take all the business type courses that I wanted to. Unfortunately, they kind of pushed you in one direction or the other. So that was the direction I went. I loved it. I graduated from kinesiology. I worked at many different physical rehab clinics, anything from sports rehab to physical rehab. I did it all. And again, I loved it. I did it for many years. And the truth is, I eventually got to a point where, still loving it, I have that personality and that perspective that I always want more. I want to try to achieve more and get to the level that I always dreamed of. I know it may sound a little kind of corny and prototypical, but
we're all like that.
Exactly. At the end of the day, I'm very motivated and I want to work to get to where I want to be. And I hit a point where I wouldn't call it so much of a rough patch, but rather an unknown. I was working in the clinics and I loved every second of it, but I woke up, I went to work, I finished work and I went home and I said, how much longer can I do this for? And I didn't really know the next steps. I had tapped all my sources. I had worked in many different clinics with, high performance athletes to, rehab hip replacement surgeries from 70 to 80-year-olds. So I had done it all and kind of said, where am I going to go now? Hit a point where I wasn't loving it as much. I still liked it. I still enjoyed it. I just wasn't loving it as much. And that was the point where I said, you know what, I really need to sit back and reflect and see. And I actually quit my job completely. I knew that if I kept working, it would just kind of keep me there and I wouldn't get that full perspective. So essentially I did quit my job. I traveled for a bit, just kind of clear the mind a bit, and came back and sat down and said, okay, where do I go from here? I looked into different options, both related to the kinesiology field, but also, in insurance or something related in kinesiology. Couldn't really find what I was looking for. And essentially one day I was talking with a mutual friend or a friend of mine about a mutual friend of his. And essentially he was telling me this story about someone who was looking to grow and start a window coverings business. And my friend had thought of me, not because of window coverings. I had no knowledge whatsoever. The basics, but nothing crazy about window coverings. But he had thought of me as someone who is hardworking, very just works hard, has that work ethic, always driven, always positive, never backing down from an opportunity, essentially. And he put the two of us together to talk. And essentially what happened from there is I was kind of proposed the idea of saying, hey, listen, this is what I want to do. Do you want to join in? Do you have any thoughts about it? And I wasn't pressured. I was kind of proposed it and said, here, this is what I'm thinking. Take some time, take it home with you, reflect on it, have a look, see what it's all about. My first reaction, to be completely honest, was, what do I want to work with window coverings for? I'm a kinesiologist. I help train athletes or recover from injuries. Why am I going to now go to window coverings? And I spent a good amount of time, and I just didn't want to kind of shoo it off right away. I really did want to kind of look into it. And eventually I kind of came to the realization that yes, window coverings are the business, and yes, they are a very important factor in the business. But at the end of the day, I was looking into it and I was saying, a business is a business, regardless the product you sell or the service you do provide. The opportunity for me to grow and start a business from the ground up was very exciting. Maybe it was because it was something I'd never done before. Maybe it was because it was something new. At the time, I didn't really know. I just thought, hey, you know what? This is a really cool idea. Even in a couple years from now, if everything crashes to the ground, at least I had that opportunity to see what it was like to work in a business and to see what it's all about. So that's how it started. I definitely kind of took it from there, hit the ground running, did my research, noticed the trend in the online world. So we then, kind of worked our way a little backwards and said, hey, wait a second, let's get this thing going online, and then we'll work into growing the business and building that foundation. So we spent a good 2 years minimum researching, growing, establishing, building our website from the ground up, obviously building the name as well at the same time. But we did it purposely backwards, where we worked and growed and not grow, but basically built that online strategy. And then once the online got going, that's when we worked on, like you were mentioning before, working hands-on with my customers. And to be honest, that was the absolute best thing we could have ever done. At the time, we weren't really sure, but looking back on it now, just because I was able to let the online be there, but really step forward and say, okay, I need to meet with these people. I want to see what it's like from the ground level. Yeah. I want to know what the education is like with people. And to be honest, that was the biggest factor for me, is how low the product knowledge and education was for the everyday consumer. And I'm talking about not 1 out of 10, not 2 out of 10. I'm talking about 9 out of 10 people who had very minimal product knowledge. And for me, that was great, because then I got into the field. I battled and I met with people, and every different type of people. I went through the measures. I went through the installs. I saw everything firsthand. And, that I just grew from there. And we're now post 3 years of fully functioning, and we're still growing every single day, which is awesome. But it's crazy to think where it started and how I got here. I still don't know how I got here, but I'm definitely here, and I'm loving it. And we're growing as a company, and ShadeWorks is starting to kind of get on the map. It's still going to take time, but as a company, as a person, we like to portray us as well-functioning, quality product, the best customer service, and that's what's going to separate ShadeWorks from the rest. And that's the direction we're heading right now.
So tell me more about your silver lining story. I want to hear more about before you got to ShadeWorks.
So before I got to ShadeWorks, as I mentioned, I was a kinesiologist, and I'm a sports guy at heart, and I loved it. And I loved working with people. I loved growing, seeing someone come in with a broken arm and then leaving with a fully functioning back to, football star status. It was awesome. And the trouble and kind of the silver linings for me was that I was stuck, and kind of that's the best way to describe it. Like I said, I still enjoyed it. That I didn't enjoy doing it. I just felt really stuck.
Yeah. And
I didn't know where to go from here. And I knew I was roughly in the right field of work. I knew I was where I wanted to be, but I knew I didn't really kind of fit there long term. And that was my biggest issue. And
is there any possibility, I've never been in that field before, but is it possible that there is a lack of people that you could aspire to be like?
Yes.
A lack of heroes within that field? Like, what do you aspire to?
Yeah, in that field,
another clinic or working a 14-hour day? How do you grow on that?
So the truth is that in that kind of line of work, when you do educate yourself, the next, like you said, there is possibilities to grow within the company, to get to that next level of managing, let's say, a clinic. But my love was working with people directly. So I was stuck there because I didn't want to take it to the next level where I wasn't then working hands-on with the customers or patients. I always interchange the two, but that was the biggest issue. Was I didn't want to get to there. So essentially where you're kind of limited is you're saying, okay, if I'm working hands-on with patients, the next step is I have to go back to school again to become a physiotherapist, a chiropractor, just a doctor, a more advanced kind of specialty, where the education would allow you to basically still work with patients, but the thought of going back to school again for another 2 years or 4 years or 8 years, it was tough. Financially, it's even more difficult. And the above all factor is the challenge to get into these schools. And, I'll give physiotherapy an example. Basically, for me personally, I was a kinesiologist. I'd worked in a clinic for 2 to 3 years. I was a personal trainer. I was a math and science tutor. I worked at camps in the summer. I gave myself every opportunity to get into these schools. I had a high 80s average, and when I applied to become a physiotherapist, I was in the mindset of, okay, which school am I going to go to? And the truth is, I ended up not getting into any. The way they take 1,500 people and narrow it down to 100 interviews is not to look at each person, but to rather look at their percentage in school. And so my 88, 87, whatever it was, average didn't compete with the 94, 95%. So from there, I didn't get into, the physiotherapy school, which was, I thought, going to be my next step. And that was the absolute, I guess, rock bottom, we'll call it, because my mindset was, okay, which school am I going to? And now all of a sudden I'm stuck with, okay, shit, I don't have any school to go to.
That's gotta hurt.
That was tough. And
it's not like you were doing bad. Like you had to.
Not at all. I loved it. And I thought I was putting myself in the position. That's the key too, right? Is that with kinesiology, it's a precursor to say, okay, which path do you want to go? And I gave it time. I said, okay, you know what? Physiotherapy, that's the path I want to go. Why? Because I still get to work firsthand with the patients. And it just said, shit, what do I do now?
That's, I think the prevailing theme that I hear is for you working hands-on with people. It's an absolute requirement. It's probably a lot like me. I had a job at one point as a social media community manager for a tech startup.
Okay.
Very big, unknown tech startup. They have just big clients. They don't deal with small business at all. So nobody's heard of them. And just a 25 person tech company, mostly coders and tech people. And I was the only social media person, the first one they'd ever hired. And they put me in a windowless room where all of the rest of the office was open concept. And they put me in a windowless room. Yeah. And I was the social media person, the outcast. that all of the tech people didn't know how to talk to. And I hated that job. I hated having to go to that office every day. I was like, why can't I just sit at home and do this? I could be so much better at my job, comfortable in my pajamas.
Question for you, did you think at first when you first got the job, did you think, oh, this is it? This is amazing. You were thrilled?
Of course. And I mean, for myself, I've come to learn that, everything is like everything in the universe, but I find jobs very much and our careers very similar to relationships. You don't know how long they're going to last. Yeah. At the beginning, they're all rosy and you feel butterflies in your stomach when you think about your future together and all the money they're going to make you and, how it feels good. Like it's a very addictive thing to be offered a job.
Yeah.
And to, on a daily basis, you show up and people smile at you and they give you, a pat on the back around the office and you get some professional socializing, which is very healthy. And so you're getting rewarded in small ways every single day just for showing up.
Yeah.
And every 2 weeks or so, you get paid a reliable amount of money. It just shows up in your bank account.
Magic. Kind
of whether or not you showed up at work or not. And you never have to work after, usually after 5 p.m. and weekends you can take off. I can see how that's a very addictive or appealing path for people in life. And it's an easy road to what we all want. But I think for me, I've found my animal, what do they call it? My animal,
like what animal you represent? Like, yes. Okay, like, I know what you're talking about.
Again, the word is out of my brain, but the animal that I represent in my life, how I walk my life, would be salmon swimming upstream. With a hungry bear at the side. I want to explore and have adventure, and I want to do amazing things that everyone else in the natural world looks at and goes, "Oh my God, can you believe what she just did?" She's from nowhere and just boom on Forbes. Yeah. What the hell? And that's that's the life that I like to lead. I can't stand 9 to 5 windowless room, not socializing with anyone.
No, I couldn't agree more.
So that it really seems to me like the silver lining, the story very much for you that I take with it is looking for what is really strong inside of you, what you really need to have fulfillment in your life. You need a social element to your job. You need that interaction and that variety of dealing with different people and crazy people and unhappy people and making them happy.
All
and, like all of that dance.
Yeah.
That feeds you as a person and allows you to really tap into your potential.
For sure.
And recognizing that that's what you have to focus on, not the role that you need to be educated for.
Yeah.
Because you're able to take that. It's not even just, it's not like it's just a need for you. It's really a talent for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because many people can't do that. Many people are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In front of people and customers and trying to solve their problems. I don't want, some people really don't like that. I'm also
It's funny you say that, because I remember when I was in, grade school, you had to do your speeches, right? And I was the type of person that I would memorize, and I'd get up in front and I would literally shake. Couldn't, literally couldn't. Like I would finish and I would get through it, but I would shake. I would struggle. And I don't remember when it was, probably in high school, grade 10, 11, something like that. And same kind of thing. I had a big presentation, and instead of kind of sitting there and memorizing everything, I wrote out some notes, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try to just not wing it, but, kind of maneuver my way through it based on notes. So like you said, like we kind of talked about before, you're not going to waste it all, writing it down. You want to save the good stuff for the actual presentation. And that was, for me, the biggest factor. And all of a sudden I went through this presentation. I wasn't nervous at all, maybe because I wasn't thinking about the fact I had to memorize every little detail and word.
Yeah.
But ever since then, I had one presentation and that was it. And then all of a sudden it opened my eyes up, and I've, being in front of a crowd or being in front of customers or making pitches to clients or, big property management companies or condos and stuff like that. I love it. And I actually look at it as an opportunity rather than something that's, more on the negative side. And it's funny that you say like that, but for me, I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'm seeing great lessons coming out of this conversation. So myself, I really like it. Is there anything that comes to mind before we end the call that you want to make sure that the audience knows, or that if anyone is sort of in a situation like where you were, where they're feeling a little bit stuck in their current role or their current job, or with their education, how did you get through the hardest point? Or
no, I know exactly what you're referring to. It's one of those things. It's the hardest factor is to obviously pinpoint and say, this is what hurt me, and this is where I had to go. And that's the hardest part, is if you try to sit down and say to yourself, okay, where did I go wrong, or where do I need to go now? It's not going to be a simple answer. And the best piece of advice or the best piece of information I can give to other people in this kind of, experience of, hey, I'm stuck. Where do I still like what I'm doing, but I don't love what I'm doing. Do I see myself going long term? The truth is you need to step back and reflect. And, on my end, I definitely, I quit my job. I'm not saying, that's something I'm going to do. But it's
one way, it's a painful way.
Maybe it's a week vacation, right? Maybe it's a 3-day vacation. Maybe it's something to kind of, to say to yourself, hey, where am I now? Where do I want to be? And how am I going to get there? And to me, the biggest factor there is to say, you look back, like you said, deep, inside yourself and say, what makes me happy? And not only what makes me happy is, what do I like doing? And for me in particular, I really, it always played down to the fact of, meeting new people, building relationships, but helping people. And, I never thought about it this way, but, when I look back and I say, okay, what kind of jobs did I have when I was younger? I was a personal trainer. I actually coached a hockey team. I forgot to mention that. I tutored young kids. I worked at camps. So, this theme of working with people and helping people was the biggest factor for me. And that's why when I came into these crossroads to say, do I want to manage something or overlook a clinic, for example, it was good, but it wasn't what I really wanted to do. And, when this opportunity came about, again, it was, a business thing, which was cool. It was new to me. So that was definitely a big factor. But at the end of the day, it was always working with people and now doing it firsthand. And even though it's window coverings and it's something I never really thought I would do, it's still helping people, and it's still, taking people's thoughts and what they want and helping them get what they want. And to me, that's definitely number one in my eyes, is helping people get what they want. And that gives me satisfaction at the same time.
Yeah. It gives you relevance and significance.
Oh yeah.
And that's what we're working for. That's awesome. Thank you so much for the conversation today, Jordan, and for sharing your story. Everyone who's listening, Jordan, as I mentioned, is with ShadeWorks Window Fashions. Can you let everyone know what your website address is?
Yes, I was actually going to chime in there, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but you can find us at www.shadeworks.ca. And like I said, we distribute all across Canada, all of our products, Canadian-made products, and we provide good products, but most importantly, we provide the best customer service. And we're with you every step of the way, and we'd love.
Jordan will be there with you personally. Jordan will be there with you every chance you need.
Always.
Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.